Dr. Emma Vance opened her eyes and saw fire falling from the sky. The pieces of her ship burned as they came down through the clouds. Each chunk of metal left a trail of smoke behind it. She lay on her back in the middle of a forest she did not know, on a planet she had never visited, and she watched her only way home turn to ash. Her body hurt everywhere. Her ribs felt broken. Her left arm was bleeding from a deep cut. But she was alive. Somehow, the escape pod had done its job. It had thrown her clear of the crash and landed her in soft ground covered with thick purple moss. Emma sat up slowly. The world spun around her for a moment, and she had to close her eyes until it stopped. When she opened them again, she looked at her surroundings. Trees, tall trees with bark the color of rust and leaves that glowed faintly in the dim light. The sky above was a strange shade of green, and 2 moons hung low on the horizon. This was Kethra Prime. She knew it from the charts she had studied before the mission. The planet was marked with a warning in every Federation database: territorial, no contact. Dangerous native species. She was not supposed to be here. No human was. Emma forced herself to stand. Pain shot through her leg, but nothing felt broken. She checked her belt and found her emergency kit still attached. Inside was a medical scanner, bandages, water purification tablets, a small knife, and a week of food rations. It was not much. It would have to be enough. The first 3 days were about survival. Emma found a small cave near a river and made it her shelter. She used branches and large leaves to block the entrance from wind and rain. She cleaned her wounds and wrapped them carefully. She filtered water from the river and set traps for small animals. The forest was full of sounds she did not recognize. Clicks and howls and strange whistles that came from the darkness. She slept with her knife in her hand and woke at every noise. On the 4th day, she saw them for the first time. She was collecting water when she heard movement in the trees. Emma froze and looked up. Something was watching her from the shadows. It was big, much bigger than her. She could see the outline of a large body, covered in dark fur, standing on 2 legs like a person. Its eyes reflected the light, glowing amber in the dim forest. Then it was gone. It moved so fast that Emma was not sure she had seen it at all. She ran back to her cave and did not come out until morning. The days turned into weeks. Emma learned which plants were safe to eat and which ones would make her sick. She learned which animals she could catch and which ones were too dangerous to approach. She built better traps. She made a fire pit inside her cave. She created a calendar by carving marks into the stone wall. 40-7 marks. 47 days alone. On that day everything changed. Emma was walking along the river, checking her traps, when she heard a sound that made her stop. It was high and sharp, a cry of pain. But it was not an animal sound. It was something else. Something almost like a child. She followed the sound carefully, moving through the trees with her knife ready. The forest grew thicker, and the purple moss covered everything. She pushed through a wall of hanging vines and found a small clearing. 3 creatures sat in the middle of it. They were young. She could tell that right away. They had the same Volf-like features she had glimpsed before, but they were smaller. Their fur was fluffy and their movements were clumsy. Cubs. They were cubs. One of them was trapped. Its back leg was caught under a fallen tree, twisted at a bad angle. The bone was clearly broken. The cub was crying out in pain while the other 2 circled around it, making worried sounds. Emma knew she should leave. The adult creatures could be nearby. If they found her near their young, they would kill her. Every survival instinct told her to walk away, but the cub was suffering. It looked at her with wide amber eyes, and she saw fear and pain in them. It was just a child who needed help. Emma could not walk away from a patient in pain. She never could. She stepped into the clearing slowly. Her hands were raised to show she meant no harm. The 2 free cubs immediately turned to face her. They growled and showed their small teeth. They were trying to be brave, trying to protect their friend. Emma stopped moving. She spoke softly, even though they could not understand her words. She said things like, "It is okay, and I want to help, and I will not hurt you." Her voice was calm and gentle. The cubs did not attack. They watched her with uncertain eyes. Emma knelt down a few feet away from the trapped cub. She opened her medical kit slowly, making sure the cubs could see everything she was doing. She pulled out a scanner and ran it over the injured leg. The break was bad, but clean. It could heal if she set it properly. She looked at the injured cub and pointed to its leg. Then she mimed what she was going to do. She would lift the tree, pull the leg free, and wrap it in a splint. The cub stared at her. It seemed to understand. Emma moved closer. The two free cubs growled louder, but they did not attack. She placed her hands on the fallen tree and pushed. Her muscles screamed in protest. The tree was heavy. Too heavy. But she kept pushing, and slowly, inch by inch, it moved. The injured cub pulled its leg free. It yelped in pain and collapsed onto the moss. Emma was at its side immediately. She worked fast, cleaning the wound, setting the bone, wrapping it tight in a splint made from straight sticks and bandages. The cub whimpered but did not fight her. Its amber eyes never left her face. When she was done, Emma sat back. She was breathing hard. Sweat ran down her face. But the leg was set properly. The cub would walk again. The three cubs looked at her. They did not growl anymore. They did not show their teeth. They just stared at her like they were seeing something they could not explain. Then, without warning, they ran. They disappeared into the forest so fast that Emma barely saw them go. The injured one limped, but it moved with surprising speed. Emma sat alone in the clearing for a long time. Her heart was still beating fast. She had just touched alien cubs on a forbidden planet. If the adults found out, she was dead, but she did not regret it. She could not regret it. She had done what a healer was supposed to do. She had helped. Emma picked up her kit and walked back to her cave. The forest felt different now. The shadows seemed less threatening. The sounds seemed less frightening. She did not know it yet, but her life had just changed forever. The days after the encounter were strange. Emma went about her normal routine. She checked her traps. She gathered water. She searched for plants she could eat. But something was different. She could feel it in the air around her. She was being watched. At first, she thought it was her imagination. The forest was full of sounds, and her mind was tired from weeks of isolation. But then she started noticing things that could not be explained. Her traps were empty. Not just some of them, all of them. Every morning, she found them untouched. No animals. No signs of struggle. Something was scaring the prey away before they could be caught. She should have been worried about starving. Instead, she found food waiting for her. On the third morning after healing the cub, Emma woke to find a bundle of roots outside her cave. They were wrapped in large leaves and tied with a vine. She picked them up carefully and examined them. They looked like the roots she had seen the local animals eating, safe, nutritious. Someone had left them for her. The next morning there was a dead animal. It was small, about the size of a rabbit, with blue fur and long ears. It had been cleaned and prepared. The fur was removed. The insides were taken out. It was ready to cook. Emma looked around the forest. She saw nothing. She heard nothing. But she knew she was not alone. The gifts kept coming. Every morning she found something new. More roots. More animals. Once she found a blanket made of woven fibers. It was soft and warm, better than anything in her survival kit. She wrapped it around her shoulders and felt tears in her eyes. Someone was taking care of her. Emma decided to give something back. She took a piece of soft leather from her kit and sewed it into a small pouch. Inside, she put dried herbs that could clean wounds and stop infections. She placed the pouch outside her cave before she went to sleep. In the morning, it was gone. In its place was a pile of sweet berries. Emma smiled. She understood now. This was a trade. This was communication. She made more gifts. She carved a small whistle from a piece of wood. When she blew into it, it made a high, clear sound. She left it outside her cave. The next day, it was gone, and she could hear the same sound echoing through the forest. Someone was playing with it. She drew pictures in the dirt near the river. Simple pictures. A circle for the sun. A curved shape for the moon. A figure that looked like her. 3 smaller figures that looked like the cubs. She pointed at the pictures and spoke out loud, naming each thing. Days passed. The gifts continued. Emma felt less alone than she had in weeks. Then one evening they came to her. Emma was sitting by her fire, cooking her dinner, when she heard movement at the edge of the clearing. She looked up and saw 5 shapes standing in the shadows. Her heart jumped, but she did not run. She did not reach for her knife. She waited. The cubs stepped into the light. There were 5 of them now. The 3 she had seen before, including the one she had healed, and 2 new ones. They moved slowly, carefully, like they were not sure if this was a good idea. Their ears were flat against their heads. Their tails were low, but they came forward. Emma stayed very still. She did not want to scare them. She kept her hands where they could see them and spoke in a soft, gentle voice. The injured cub came closest. His leg had healed well. She could see that he still walked with a small limp, but the bone was straight and strong. He sat down in front of her and looked at her with those big amber eyes. Emma slowly reached out her hand. The cub sniffed it. His nose was cold and wet against her palm. Then he pressed his head against her hand, and Emma felt warmth spread through her chest. The other cubs came closer. One by one, they sat around her fire. They formed a circle, with Emma at the center. They watched her with curiosity and something that looked like trust. That night, Emma learned their names. The Varani language was difficult. It was full of growls and clicks and sounds that human throats were not made to produce. But Emma was a fast learner. She had spent years learning alien biology. Learning alien words was not so different. The injured cub was called Ren. He was the bravest of the group, always the first to approach her, always the first to try new things. He had a patch of white fur on his chest that looked like a star. The largest cub was Kelly. She was female, with silver tips on her dark fur that caught the firelight. She was the daughter of someone important. Emma could tell by the way the others looked at her with respect. Kelly was cautious. She watched everything with sharp, intelligent eyes. The other 3 were Tovik, Sarin, and Myra. Tovik was strong and quiet. Sarin was playful and always making jokes that Emma could not understand. Myra was the smallest, barely old enough to be away from her mother. She had soft gray fur and eyes that were too big for her face. Over the following nights, Emma learned more than just names. She learned that the Varani lived in clans. Each clan had elders who made the big decisions. They had hunters who brought food. They had mothers who raised the young. They had laws and traditions that went back thousands of years. She learned that cubs formed groups called hunt packs. These were not just friendships. They were bonds that lasted for life. A hunt pack was family. A hunt pack was everything. She learned that outsiders were not welcome. The Varani did not trust other species. They had heard stories about humans from distant trade routes. The stories were not good. Humans were described as weak, strange creatures who could not survive without their machines, and yet, here were 5 cubs sitting with a human around a fire, sharing food and words. One night, Kelly spoke to Emma about something serious. Her voice was low and her ears were pressed back. Emma had to concentrate hard to understand. The cubs had been arguing. They had been arguing about Emma. Ren wanted to bring Emma to the clan. He said she had proven herself by healing his leg and surviving alone in the forest. He said she deserved protection. He said she was packed. Kelly disagreed. She was afraid of what the elders would do. Outsiders were forbidden. If the clan found out about Emma, they might hurt her. They might kill her. Kelly did not want that to happen, but she also did not want to break the law. The argument had been going on for days. Tovik sided with Ren. Sarin was not sure. Myra was too young to vote but followed wherever the others went. Then Kelly told Emma something that made her heart stop. The cubs had taken a vote. In Varani tradition, a hunt pack's decisions were sacred. When a pack voted together, their word carried real weight. Even the elders had to listen. It was an old law, older than anyone could remember. The vote had been unanimous. All 5 cubs agreed. They wanted Emma in their pack. Emma did not know what to say. She sat in silence, looking at the 5 young faces around her. They had chosen her. These children, who had every reason to fear her, had chosen to make her family. Ren moved closer and pressed his head against her shoulder. It was a gesture of deep affection. Emma had seen the cubs do it with each other. Now they were doing it with her. Tears fell down Emma's face. She did not try to stop them. She was not alone anymore, but she knew this was only the beginning. The cubs had made their choice. Now the clan would have to make theirs, and Emma was not sure she would survive the decision. Emma woke to the feeling of being watched. She opened her eyes slowly, and her blood turned to ice. A massive figure stood over her bed. It blocked out the faint light from the cave entrance. She could see the outline of powerful shoulders, long arms, and a head crowned with pointed ears. Two eyes glowed like burning copper in the darkness. Emma's hand moved toward the knife under her pillow. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. The figure did not move. Emma forced herself to breathe. She forced herself to think. If this creature wanted to kill her, she would already be dead. It was just standing there, waiting. She sat up slowly and looked past the figure. 5 smaller shapes were arranged behind it. Their heads were bowed low. Their ears were flat. She recognized them immediately, the cubs. Ren, Kelly, Tovik, Saran, and little Myra. They had brought someone to meet her. The massive creature stepped back, and Emma got her first clear look at him. He was old. Very old. His dark fur was streaked with white, especially around his muzzle. A long scar ran across his face from his forehead to his jaw, cutting through one eye that was now milky and blind. He walked with a slight bend in his back, but his remaining eye was sharp and fierce. This was an elder. This was a leader. Emma stood up from her bed. She kept her hands at her sides where he could see them. She met his gaze directly. Among the Varani, looking away was a sign of weakness. The cubs had taught her that. The elder studied her for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. The young ones say you are pack. Emma understood him. Her Varani was not perfect, but she had practiced every night with the cubs. She knew enough. They say you healed the wounded, the elder continued. They say you shared food when you had little. They say you learned our tongue. They say you sat with them through the long nights and did not flee when the storms came. Emma nodded slowly. I did. The elder took a step closer. He was so tall that Emma had to crane her neck to look at his face. He smelled like pine and smoke and something wild that she could not name. I am Vorath, he said. Elder of Clan Thornwood. I have led this clan for 40 seasons. I have fought in 12 wars. I have buried 3 mates and more children than I can count. His voice hardened. I have seen humans before. Traders who came with their ships and their lies. They promised friendship. They promised trade. Then they tried to take our land. Emma felt cold fear running down her spine. But she did not look away. We drove them off, Vorath continued. We killed those who would not leave. Since then, no human has walked on Kethra Prime, until you. He leaned closer. His breath was hot against her face. Tell me, small creature, why should I let you live? Emma swallowed hard. She could feel the cubs watching her from behind the elder. Ren's eyes were wide with worry. Kelly's tail was low and still. They had risked everything to bring her before the clan. Now everything depended on what she said next. She thought about all the things she could say. She could beg for mercy. She could promise to leave and never return. She could try to explain that she was different from other humans, but none of those things felt right. Emma straightened her back and lifted her chin. She spoke slowly and clearly, making sure the elder understood every word. I am a healer, she said. Where I come from, we have a saying. The strength of the pack is the Volf, and the strength of the Volf is the pack. She paused to make sure he was listening. His good eye was fixed on her. He said nothing. I cannot hunt like you, Emma continued. I cannot fight like you. I am small and weak by your measure. But I can fix what is broken. I can cure what is sick. I can teach your cubs things they have never imagined. And I can give everything I have to protect them. She pointed to Ren without looking away from the elder. I healed his leg when I could have walked away. I shared my food when I had almost nothing. I sat with them through the cold nights because they are my friends. My family, her voice grew stronger. You ask why you should let me live? I ask you something different. What kind of pack turns away someone who has already proven their loyalty? Silence filled the cave. Emma could hear her own heartbeat. She could hear the cubs breathing behind the elder. The moment stretched on and on. Then Vorath did something unexpected. He laughed. It was a deep, rumbling sound that came from his chest. It was not a cruel laugh. It was surprised. Maybe even impressed. You have fire in you, he said. More than I expected from a creature so small. He straightened up and looked over his shoulder at the cubs. And you, young ones, you have invoked the old law. A unanimous vote of a hunt pack is sacred. Even I cannot overturn it without cause. Kelly stepped forward. Her voice was steady despite her fear. We know the law, Elder. We chose her. She is ours. Vorath turned back to Emma. His expression was hard to read. The cubs have chosen you? By our laws, their word carries weight. But laws are not enough. You must prove yourself to the clan. You must show that you deserve a place among us. Emma nodded. I will. It will not be easy. Many in the clan will hate you. They will call you outsider. They will try to drive you away. Some may even try to harm you. He leaned closer again. And know this, human. If you betray them, if you bring harm to this clan, if you do anything that puts these cubs in danger, I will kill you myself, slowly. Do you understand? Emma met his eye without flinching. I understand. Vorath stared at her for a long, hard moment. Then something shifted in his face. It was small, barely visible, but Emma saw it. Something that might have been respect. Then welcome to Clan Thornwood, Emma of the humans. His voice rose, filling the cave with power. May your hunts be fruitful and your enemies fall before you. The cubs erupted. Ren bounded forward and pressed his head against Emma's shoulder. His whole body was shaking with joy. Kelly's tail wagged so hard that her entire back end moved with it. Tovik howled, a sound of pure happiness that echoed off the stone walls. Saren jumped in circles, unable to contain his excitement. Little Myra yipped and climbed into Emma's arms, burying her face in Emma's neck. Emma held them. She held all of them as best she could. Tears streamed down her face and she did not care. She laughed and cried at the same time. She was packed now. She was clan. Vorath watched them with an expression that Emma could not quite read. When the celebration calmed down, he spoke again. Tomorrow, you will come to the main den. The clan will meet you. Many will not be pleased. You must be ready. Emma nodded. I will be ready. The elder turned and walked toward the cave entrance. Before he left, he paused and looked back at her. The cubs chose well, he said quietly. Do not make me regret trusting their judgment. Then he was gone, disappearing into the darkness of the forest. Emma sank to the ground, suddenly exhausted. The cubs piled around her, their warm bodies pressing against hers. Ren licked her cheek in a gesture she had learned was like a kiss. Kelly lay across her lap. Myra was already falling asleep in her arms. Outside, the twin moons rose over the trees. The forest was quiet and peaceful. Emma looked at her pack. Her family. These strange, wonderful creatures who had accepted her when they had every reason to fear her. She did not know what tomorrow would bring. She did not know if the clan would accept her or drive her away. She did not know if she would survive the challenges ahead, but right now, in this moment, she was exactly where she belonged. She was home. Winter came to Kethra Prime like an angry beast. The temperature dropped so fast that ice formed on the rivers in a single night. Snow fell thick and heavy, covering the forest in white. The wind howled through the trees and made sounds like screaming. Animals disappeared into their holes. Birds flew away to warmer places. The world became cold and silent and deadly. Emma had never felt cold like this before. Her human body was not made for such weather. Her fingers turned blue if she left them uncovered for too long. Her breath froze in the air the moment it left her mouth. She understood now why the cubs had looked at her with such confusion when she talked about not having fur. The clan moved. Underground, the Varani had built their home inside a mountain. Tunnels and caves spread out in all directions, carved by many generations over thousands of years. There were large halls where the clan gathered to eat and tell stories. There were small chambers where families slept together in piles of warm bodies. There were storage rooms filled with dried meat and preserved plants. Emma was given a chamber near the cubs. It was small, barely big enough for her to lie down, but it was warm. The cubs had lined it with extra furs and blankets. They visited her constantly, checking on her like she was a sick patient who needed watching. In a way, she was. The cold affected her more than it affected them. She shivered even when wrapped in blankets. She needed to eat more just to keep her body warm. The Varani could not understand it. To them, she was a strange and fragile thing, but she was their strange and fragile thing. And they protected her. The first weeks underground were about learning. Emma learned how the clan worked. She learned who was in charge and who followed. She learned the names of hunters and mothers and elders. She learned which tunnels led where and which ones were forbidden. She learned the songs they sang and the stories they told around the fire. She also learned that not everyone was happy about her presence. A hunter named Grath was the loudest voice against her. He was large and strong, with dark brown fur and scars on his arms from many battles. He had lost a brother to human traders many years ago. He hated Emma's kind. He made sure she knew it. Every time Emma walked through the main hall, Grath watched her with hate in his eyes. He called her names when he thought the elders could not hear. He blocked her path. He growled when she came near. His friends did the same. Emma tried to ignore it. She kept her head down and focused on her work because she had work to do. The clan had healers, but their medicine was old. They used herbs and rituals passed down through spoken words for generations. They did not understand why wounds became infected. They did not know about bacteria or viruses. They had no idea how the body actually worked. Emma knew. She had spent years learning how to save lives. Now she used that knowledge to help the Varani. She started small. A cub with a fever that would not break. An old mother with pain in her joints. A hunter who had cut his hand and the wound was turning bad. Emma treated them all. She explained what she was doing and why. She showed them that her medicine worked. Word spread. More Varani came to her with their problems. Soon she had a steady stream of patients, young and old, male and female. They came to her chamber, nervous and unsure, and left feeling better than they had in years. Even Grath's friends started coming to her. They did it secretly when Grath was not watching. They were ashamed to admit they needed help from an outsider. But they were also in pain, and Emma made the pain stop. One night, a mother came to Emma in tears. Her cub was sick, very sick. He had been coughing for days, and now he could barely breathe. The clan's healers had tried everything. Nothing worked. Emma followed the mother to her chamber. The cub was lying on a pile of furs, his small body shaking. His breath came in short, painful gasps. Emma could hear the fluid in his lungs. She worked through the night. She used every tool in her medical kit. She made a steam tent to help him breathe. She gave him medicine to fight the infection. She stayed by his side, watching his temperature, adjusting his position, talking to him even though he could not hear her. By morning, the cub was breathing normally. The fever had broken. He opened his eyes and looked at his mother, and she collapsed against Emma, crying with relief. The whole clan heard about it. The human had saved a cub that their own healers could not save. Grath said nothing. But he stopped blocking Emma's path after that. The messengers came. They arrived in the middle of a snowstorm. 2 young Varani from a clan far to the east. They were thin and tired, and their eyes were full of fear. They asked to speak with Elder Vorith immediately. Emma was not supposed to be at the meeting. She was still an outsider in many ways. But Kelly snuck her in through a side tunnel, and she listened from the shadows. The news was terrible. A plague had swept through the eastern clans. Hundreds were sick. Cubs were dying by the dozens. The healers did not know what to do. The sickness spread from person to person, and nothing could stop it. The messengers had heard rumors about a human who could work miracles. They had walked for 5 days through the worst storm in years to find her. They begged for help. Elder Vorath looked at Emma in the shadows. She knew he could see her. He always seemed to know where she was. Emma stepped forward. Every eye in the room turned to her. The messengers stared at her with hope and confusion. They had expected something bigger, something more impressive. Instead, they got a small, furless creature who barely came up to their shoulders. Emma spoke clearly. "I will go." Vorath shook his head. "The journey is too dangerous. You will not survive the cold. You are too valuable to lose." Emma felt anger rise in her chest. "Those cubs are dying. I am a healer. What good is a healer who only heals those within reach?" Vorath opened his mouth to argue, but another voice spoke first. Ren stepped forward from the group of cubs. His voice was steady and strong. "If Emma goes, we go with her. A hunt pack travels together, always." Kelly moved to stand beside him. Then Tovik, then Saren, even little Myra stepped forward, though she was shaking. They stood together, facing the elder. 5 cubs who had invoked the old law. 5 voices that could not be overruled. Vorath looked at them for a long time. His face was unreadable. Finally, he spoke. "The law is clear. A hunt pack's decisions are sacred." He turned to the messengers. "The human will come to your clan. She will bring our cubs with her. And if any harm comes to them, Clan Thornwood will have its revenge." The messengers nodded quickly. They looked at Emma with something new in their eyes. Not just hope now, respect. Emma looked at her pack. Ren's tail was wagging. Kelly nodded at her with pride. The others pressed close, ready to follow wherever she led. She was afraid. The journey would be long and hard. The plague could be something she had never seen before. She might not be able to save anyone. She might die trying, but she was not alone. She had her pack. She had her family. Together they would face whatever came next. The journey east took 7 days. Emma wrapped herself in every fur and blanket the clan could spare. She rode on Tovik's back when the snow became too deep for her short legs. At night, the cubs formed a circle around her, their warm bodies keeping her alive. Without them, she would have frozen in the first storm. The plague was worse than the messengers had described. When they arrived at the eastern settlement, Emma saw death everywhere. The air smelled wrong. The tunnels were quiet. Cubs lay on beds of fur, too weak to move. Adults sat beside them with hollow eyes, waiting for the end. Emma did not waste time. She set up a workspace in the largest chamber. She used equipment salvaged from her crashed ship, items she had carried with her from Clan Thornwood. She had test tubes and scanners and chemicals that the Varani had never seen before. To them, it looked like magic. To Emma, it was science. She examined the sick cubs. She took samples. She studied the disease under her scanner and learned how it spread, how it attacked the body, how it killed. The plague was a virus. It targeted the lungs and made it impossible to breathe. The Varani had no natural defense against it. Their healers had been using herbs that did nothing. Some of those herbs actually made the sickness worse. Emma worked without rest. She slept in short bursts only when her body refused to go on. She ate only when Ren physically put food in front of her, and refused to leave until she finished it. The cubs helped in every way they could. Kelly stood guard outside Emma's workspace, keeping curious visitors away. Tovik and Saren ran messages between the clans, carrying news and supplies. Little Myra sat quietly beside Emma, bringing water and comfort without being asked. 3 weeks passed. Cubs kept dying. Emma kept working. Then finally, she found it. The cure was a mixture of compounds that Emma made from local plants and chemicals from her kit. It was not perfect. It would not work on everyone. But it was better than anything else they had. Emma tested it on the sickest cub first. His name was Len, and he was only 3 seasons old. His mother had given up hope days ago. She sat beside him, waiting for him to die. Emma gave him the medicine. Then she sat down and waited. Hours passed. Len's breathing did not change. His fever did not break. Emma felt despair creeping into her heart. She had been wrong. She had failed, then, just before dawn, Len coughed. It was a strong cough, not the weak gasping he had been doing before. His eyes opened. He looked around the room with confusion. His mother screamed with joy. She grabbed him and held him so tight that Emma worried she might hurt him. But Len was fine. Better than fine. The fever was gone. The fluid in his lungs was clearing. He was going to live. Emma made more medicine. She went from den to den, chamber to chamber, giving it to every sick cub she could find. She held children in her arms and promised them they would see the spring. She looked into the eyes of dying parents and told them their families would survive. She kept every promise. The cure was not perfect. Some cubs were too far gone, and Emma could not save them. She held them as they died and cried for each one. But most of them lived. Most of them recovered. By the time the snow began to melt, the plague was broken. The eastern clans called her a miracle worker. They sang songs about the human who came from the west and drove away death. They offered her gifts, food, furs, weapons. They asked her to stay and be their healer forever. Emma thanked them but said no. She had a home. She had a clan. She had a pack waiting for her. The journey back was easier. The storms had passed and the days were growing longer. Emma walked most of the way on her own feet. She was stronger now than she had been when she first crashed on this planet. The cold still bothered her, but she had learned to endure it. When they reached Clan Thornwood, the whole settlement came out to greet them. Varani lined the paths, watching as Emma and the cubs walked through the main gate. Some of them cheered. Some of them just stared. But no one called her an outsider anymore. Elder Voreth met them at the entrance to the Great Hall. He looked at Emma with his one good eye, and she saw something in his face that made her heart swell. Pride. He was proud of her. He said nothing. He simply stepped aside and let her pass. The festival of new hunts was held on the first night of spring. It was the biggest celebration of the year, a time when the clans gathered to honor the bonds of pack and family. Fires burned all through the settlement. Food was shared. Songs were sung. Emma sat with her cubs around the largest fire. The flames danced and crackled, sending sparks up toward the stars. Around them, hundreds of Varani laughed and talked and howled with joy. Elder Voreth stood to speak. The crowd fell silent. Every eye turned toward the old leader. His voice carried across the gathering like thunder. "A cycle ago," he said, "I stood over a strange creature's bed and asked what use she could be to a pack. I asked what a soft, weak, furless thing could offer the Varani." He paused. Emma felt the weight of every gaze. "I know the answer now," Voreth continued. She offered everything. Her knowledge, her courage, her heart. She walked into death's shadow and dragged our children back into the light. His voice rose until it filled the night. "She is not Varani. She will never be Varani. But she is pack. She is clan. She is ours." The Varani howled. It was not just Clan Thornwood. It was all of them. Every clan that had gathered for the festival. Every Varani who had heard the stories. Their voices joined together in a sound that shook the ground and reached toward the stars. Emma felt tears running down her face. She did not try to stop them. She let them fall freely. Ren pressed against her side. Kelly's hand found her shoulder. Tovik and Sarin howled along with the crowd. Little Myra climbed into Emma's lap and looked up at her with bright, happy eyes. Emma held her tight. Later that night, when the celebration had calmed and most of the clan had gone to sleep, Emma walked alone to the edge of the settlement. She stood on a hill and looked up at the sky. The stars were bright and clear. Somewhere up there, among all those points of light, was Earth, her home. Her people, a small object in her pocket, began to blink. It was the control unit for her rescue beacon. She had kept it with her all this time, waiting for the right moment. The signal had finally been received. A Federation ship was coming. It would arrive within days. Emma pulled out the device and looked at it. The blinking light was steady and calm. Help is coming, it seemed to say. "You can go home now." She thought about her old life. Her apartment on Earth, her job at the hospital, her colleagues and friends and the familiar comfort of human society. Then she thought about Red and Kelly and the others. She thought about the warmth of their bodies on cold nights. She thought about the songs they sang and the stories they told. She thought about the way Myra laughed when Emma made funny faces. She thought about the trust in their eyes. When they called her Pack, she thought about everything she had found on this strange planet. Emma looked at the blinking light one more time. Then she pressed the button and switched it off. The light died. The signal stopped. The rescue ship would never find her. Emma put the device back in her pocket and turned toward the settlement. The fires were still burning. The sound of distant laughter reached her ears. Her pack was waiting for her. She walked back down the hill, back toward the lights, back toward her family. Above her, the twin moons rose over the mountains. The stars sparkled like diamonds scattered across black cloth. The night was cold and clear and beautiful. Emma smiled. She was not going anywhere. She was exactly where she was meant to be. She was home, and somewhere in the darkness, 5 young voices called her name. Emma ran toward them, laughing, and the night was filled with the sound of a pack reunited, the human of clan. Thornwood had found her place among the stars, and she would never leave it again.